Yes, hello everyone. This is Python for All. I'm your regular host, Dr. Michael Ekwono. In session, today's session, I will quickly talk about DocString. Here, I want to shed more light on documentation strings with examples. And for this lecture and subsequent lectures, I will be using the Jupyter Lab or Jupyter Notebook. To start with, you can open your Jupyter Lab or the notebook by simply going to your working directory, open your window PowerShell or terminal. In my case, I'm using Linux operating system, so I'm using terminal, but it is the same with the window PowerShell or the command prompt. So here I've opened my terminal right in my working directory. You can see my working directory shown as document, messed up mentors, and note. If you are watching me, I'm streaming across 8 different platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Telegram. If you're on with me, you can send in your question if you have any question. But if you don't have, I intend that this stream would not take too much time, just for a very short time. So you go into your working directory, as I've said, and then you open your Jupyter Lab or Jupyter Notebook with the command Python -m Jupyter Lab. Once you have done this, you will see sets of command running through your terminal. And what happens next is that it opens a local host on your web browser. So it opens on your default web browser. And when it opens, you will see something like this. Although here I've already prepared these notes for this broadcast. So in your case, you will see a blank screen where you have the opportunity to, if you are using Jupyter Lab, you have the opportunity to open either a notebook, an IPython kernel, or you can open a Python file. Let me show you briefly. If I click on this plus sign here, you see this is the window it will open you to. You can open a notebook with Python 3 IPY kernel. You can open that's a console. You can open with Python 3 IPY kernel. You can also open others such as your terminal. You can open text file. You can open Markdown. You can open Python file. You can open show contextual help. If you click on Python file, it opens an editor. For example, it opens its editor, and you can put in your Python code here. And once you saved it, it will be saved right in your working directory because this Jupyter Lab is opened in your working directory. So I don't need this, so I will close this. So what we want to discuss today is basically DocString. In short, documentation string. So DocString is encapsulated in PEP 257. So what is DocString? A DocString is simply a string literal that occurs as the first statement in a module. Remember, what is a module? A module is any file with .py. Okay, .py. So, like I've said, DocString is simply that string literal that occurs as a first statement in a module, function, class, or method definition. Such a DocString becomes the dunder method, or what we call magic method, double underscore DOC, double underscore. In other words, double underscore doc, double underscore special attribute of that object. All modules should normally have DocString, and all functions and classes exported by a module should also have DocStrings. Public method, okay, including the double underscore init double underscore construct, should have DocStrings. I will shed more light on public methods when we get to object-oriented programming. There we'll look at public methods, non-public methods, or private methods, and you have a better understanding of this. But for this lecture, just follow me in trying to lay some background on what documentation strings are and how you should use them. Because in the previous video, when we talked about the part 3 of PEP 8, we just gave a general overview of DocString without detailed description. But here I want to show you and basically give more explanation to it and also show you examples of how you should write your DocString in Python to have beautiful Pythonic codes and also ensure that you don't break readability of your code. So a package may be documented in the same Moodle docstring of the double underscore init.py. At this stage, you should know that the init file is always an empty file found right inside the directory of your package, and that file is empty. The mere fact that it has .py attached to it means that it is a Moodle. So right inside the Moodle, you can also place all your documentation strings there. So that's what this is talking about. Now, string literals occurring elsewhere in Python code may also act as documentation. They are not recognized by the Python bytecode compiler and are not accessible as runtime attributes. For example, or that is not assigned to the double underscore doc double underscore. But two types of extra dot strings may be extracted by software tools. What this is saying here is that sometimes when you use comments in your code, they are not being executed by the Python compiler, and they are also not accessible as attributes, okay, of your module or class or function or any object definition. So, but there are two types that can be extracted by software tools. The first of them is the string literal occurring immediately after a simple assignment at the top level of a module, class, or an init method, which we call attribute docstrings. So at the top level, right at the top level of your module, before you begin any import, okay, every string literal, either a comment or a docstring that appears there, or right inside your class at the top level of the class, or in an init file, they are referred to as attribute docstrings. They will definitely be picked up or extracted by by software tools. So the second one is string literals occurring immediately after another docstrings. They are called additional docstrings. So in the Moodle file you have before your import and your feature import, you have a docstring. And right inside those modules, you have functions and classes. You also have docstrings. So you have the first docstring, and you have which is known as the attribute docstrings, and you have additional docstrings. All of this will be extracted by software tools. Now, there are basically I would say there are two types of docstrings or two ways of writing your docstrings. The first is called the one liner or the one line docstring. The one liner are really obvious cases. What it means is here is that they should fit to one line. For example, if we have this function, okay, which takes a string, and right after the function definition, we have our docstring. You can see here we started our docstring with the triple quotation marks, and we say this is a docstring, a text docstring. And then on the next line, we say it describes a function that takes a string input, and then the function returns the string. Now, if I execute this code, let's run this code, run this code, okay. Now, the next is that I want to see this documentation string. So I can print function, the function, without calling the function or imputing the argument. I just call the function and dot it with the documentation string, like function dot passing the dunder method, which is double underscore doc double underscore. If we run this code, let's see what our output looks like. If you run this code, we simply get this is a test doc string. It describes a function that takes an input string, which means that once you import your Moodle file and you want to see the documentation file right in your Moodle, all you need to do is to what? To call the dunder method double underscore doc double underscore on that Moodle file or on the function or on the classes. You will see the documentation string for that module, function, or the class. Now, next, let's actually see the way these doctrines are printed. Okay, so we use the rep method. This method prints the raw strings that you have in the documentation string. So that's what it outputs. It tells you where you have white spaces, where you have a next line, and all of that. So if I come here and run this code, you see, we here it shows us that we have first a first line where you have this is a text or string, and then this backward slash n means it is broken to another line. In other words, the next string literals or statement goes to the another line. So it describes a function that takes a string input and ends that line with this backward slash n. So you can see that this is what, though written as a, this is a two-liner doc string. Now, next, let's look at this function find root, where you have a one-liner documentation strings. If I run this code, right, I run this code, and then let me try to print the documentation string of find roots, right? So I would add a cell underneath, and here I will say print find roots, and I will dots, and I will call the doc string, the double underscore or double underscore doc on it. If I run this script, what do you see? Returns the path name of the root directory. That is the documentation string right here. Let's see, print the raw string. In other words, the raw string. So if to print the raw string of these documentation strings, I will insert another cell downward using this plus sign here. So it inserts a cell below. Then here I want to print the raw string to see where I have, if I have a next line, or and how the strings are actually formatted. So I print rep. This rep, REPR, is actually a built-in function in Python. We will look at that when we talk about Python data structure, and in our subsequent videos where we'll talk about string type and the RAP type. We will see all of this, take shape when we start discussing our functions, and after functions, moving to classes and object-oriented programming. We will shed more light on, you would have a better understanding of how we use this and why we should use rep, and where we should use print, and where we should use string. I would show all of that. So here I will call the function. I would just write the function name, find root, but I'm not calling the function. It's not taking any input, which is a string, no argument sent in, just write the function name and then call dots, and then you call your Donda method doc. Now, if I run this code, oh, sorry, there's a mistake there. I should have another bracket, ending bracket. That's why the error pops up there. So it's corrected now. If I run this, you see, it prints out the raw string literal. You can see the single quotation mark raw string. That's what that rep does in Python. So it returns the path name of the root directory. So here you can note something here. For one-liner DocStrings, okay, you should ensure that you start your documentation strings right after the triple quotes. So I put in here note, triple quotes are used even though that the string fits on one line. This makes it easy to later expand it. The closure quotes on the same line as the opening quotes. This looks better for one-liners. So for one-liners, both the opening quotes and the closing quotes should be on a single line. There are no blank lines either before or after the doc strings. Notice it. There are no blank lines before or after the doc strings for one-liner doc strings. Take note of that. Don't leave any blank line before the doc string and after the doc string. Next, the doc string is a phrase ending in a period. So it prescribes the function or method's effect as a command. What that means is that what the doc string says is do this, return that, not as a description. For example, don't write returns the path name. No, rather says this function does this and returns this, not this function returns the path name. No, don't do that. Okay. The one line docstring should not be a signature reiterating the function or method parameters, which can be obtained by introspection. Don't do, and for example, don't write don't do. So it's like we were trying to repeat uh the same thing. The documentation docstring is should be descriptive. It tells you what the module is doing and what the module returns. It gives you a full description of what happens in the module. If it's a function, it tells you exactly what is happening in that function. If you have arguments in the function, what are the arguments? What are the types of the arguments? If it's a class, it tells you a lot about the class. What are the various methods implemented in this class? Do you have private methods? Do you have public methods? Do you have instance methods? Do you have class methods? Do you have static methods? Do you have properties? That's decorators. Do you have getters? It gives you all of these attributes that you have domiciled in the class. So I take another example. Here I have a function AB, and look at the docstring function AB, and then it is annotated to return a list. Don't do this. This type of docstring is appropriate for C functions, okay, where introspection is not possible. However, the nature of the return value cannot be determined by introspection, so it should be mentioned. The preferred form for such a doctrine will be something like this: function AB, and then do X and return a list. Next, I'll proceed to talk about multi-line docstrings. Multi-line docstrings consist of a summary line, just like a one-line docstring, followed by a blank line, followed by a more elaborate description. It is important that it fits one line and is separated from the rest of the docstring by a blank line. The summary may be on the same line as the opening quotes or on the next line. The entire docstring is indented the same as the quotes as its first line. I will show you an example of what I mean by all this. Insert a blank line after all docstrings, one line or multi-line, that documents a class. The reason is that in a class we separate every of our class methods by a blank line. So in a class, always insert that blank line before and after a docstring. Do not use Emacs convention of mentioning the arguments of a function or methods in an uppercase in running text. The reason is that Python is case sensitive and argument names can be used for keywords. So the docstring should document the correct argument names. It is best to list each argument on a separate line. Now let's look at these examples and then we come to the end of this lecture. It's a very short lecture, short video section. So let's look at this example. Here I have a function class that takes two input, real and imaginary, and they have default values of 0. And look at my docstring. My attention is on the docstring. You see, right after the opening triple quotation marks, I have form a complex number. Then I leave a blank space and say keyword arguments. In other words, what are they? Here I have keyword arguments, real, and I give explanation of details of the real. The real part, okay, real is the real part. Default value 0. Imag, the imaginary part, default value 0 in brackets. And I close the docstring on the next line. And then you can now write the body of the function. Okay, I'll run this cell. Then look at this other function. Here I have def full, a function full with that takes no input argument. And I have my docstring. Instead of starting the docstring here, I started on the next line. This is the second line of the docstring. It's always advisable to start it immediately, not on the second line. You will see the reason why. Now let me run this cell again. Now to illustrate what is happening here, let's look at print the raw string representation of the full function. If I run this, you see it tells you that you have inserted a next line. So there's a first line and you inserted a second line in that docstring. But if you look at this next function bar, because it's a one-liner docstring, I'll run this cell to show you what I mean. Now let's print the raw string representation of the docstring of the function bar. So I'll print rep bar. If I run the cell, you see there is no new line inserted before the docstring and after the docstring. So for one-liner docstrings, do not insert new lines. Just start the docstring immediately after the opening triple quotes and end the closing triple quote on the same line. Thank you very much for staying tuned with me. If you have any question, please leave it in the comment section. I would post a link of this notebook in the comment section as well. Please like this video, share this video, and if you are watching this video and you have not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. And do not forget to hit the notification bell to get notified of my new uploads. Till then, see you in my next video session. Bye.